Hi, my name is Lewis Carroll. I want to talk to you a little bit about your joints and how you can bring them back naturally without having to go through a knee replacement surgery or hip replacement surgery. I went through this, so I'm going to tell you how to do this based on my opinion and my own personal experience. The way you do it, number one, is you have to bring up growth hormone in order to increase your production of cartilage. And then you have to stop the damage happening to your cartilage, and the way you do that is you bring DHEA back up. That's how you do it. Now I'm going to explain, I'll give you some background on why this works. If you're an older person and, let's say you're in your 50s or 60s and you've gone to the doctor and complained about knee pain and hip pain, the typical response that I've heard of is the doctors, and this is what I got 10 years ago when I went to the doctor, they told me, well, you wore your cartilage out. And you might think that's really true, because you might think, well, I played football or I played basketball or I ran or I did construction and just wrecked my knees. That's not why your knees are bad. In my opinion, your knees have gone bad because they've been taken apart by your own immune system. That's typically what's happening. You have T cells, beta cells, macrophages that infiltrate your knee joints, and they become overactive. Once they get activated by your cytokines, they become very dangerous, and they'll actually take apart good cells, and they'll take apart, like T cells, I believe, can take apart your cartilage just by injecting granzymes, which is an enzyme that just dissolves your cartilage. So that's what's really going on. It's your immune system that's doing this. It doesn't do that in young people because young people have higher amounts of DHEA being produced by their adrenal glands. And older people don't have those levels. It declines very sharply. DHEA controls, well, let me tell you this. Everything in the body is controlled. Everything is regulated. And so naturally you want to look for the control on inflammatory cytokines, and that happens to be DHEA. DHEA controls the inflammatory response, and it keeps chronic inflammation down where it's supposed to be. But as you age, and DHEA declines very sharply, so by the time you're 50 or 60, you've probably lost 70 to maybe 80% of your DHEA production. This is a real hardcore, sharp decline, and since that's the control of the inflammatory cytokines, your chronic inflammation is going to go up. And that means you're going to lose your joints. That means the body's going to develop a lot more visceral fat. Your stomach is going to start to protrude. These are side effects of chronic inflammation due to a decline in DHEA. We already know from clinical tests that DHEA controls TNF-alpha. It inhibits interleukins, interleukin 4, interleukin 6, 8, 12, P40. There are actually hundreds of inflammatory cytokines, many of them that we haven't even probably identified yet. But DHEA appears to be a very strong control of those cytokines. And so when you lose DHEA, you're going to lose control of your inflammatory process, and your knees and joints and hips are going to go. That's just the sad truth. So the good news is you can bring it back. Once you understand what's happening, once you understand the problem, there is a way to bring your knees and hips back naturally. Maintaining your joints is a process. You have, on one side, you have degradation going on, and on the other side, you have rejuvenation going on. So as you go through life, and as you go through your day-to-day activities, you're going to do some minor damage to your cartilage, and at night you're going to go to sleep and you're going to regrow that cartilage. What you want to do is you want to grow it as fast as you can damage it, or faster. That's how it works when you're young. You don't seem to have knee problems and hip problems when you're young, because you can rebuild them as fast as you can take them down. But as you get older, obviously you're doing more damage. Well, actually, you're not doing more damage, because generally older people don't move around as much as they did when they were younger. So you're not doing more damage. You haven't increased that. But you have decreased your ability to rebuild those joints. So number one, you have to bring up growth hormone. For me, I did it with my own formula that I created. It's called the Time Machine. I had to find a way to get growth hormone up. And I found out I could do it with certain natural foods, for certain natural ingredients, all of which I put in that Time Machine product. But what I found out is that the pituitary gland isn't wore out, it's not tired, it's perfectly capable of putting out very high amounts of growth hormone. But it's being told not to. And the inhibitor, and like I said before, everything in the body is regulated. So if your pituitary gland isn't putting out growth hormone, you could bet it's being regulated down. It's not wore out, everything is regulated. But those regulatory processes do go off track as you age. So the pituitary gland is being inhibited by somatostatin. So I found a way to inhibit somatostatin. I put it in the Time Machine, and up it went. My growth hormone levels went up. We ran some blood tests on some other guys just to see how far it would go up, generally speaking, and it goes up about 400%. So I'm talking about an increase from 0.5 international units, which might be typical for a 50-year-old, to about 3.3. That's a high jump. But when I brought growth hormone back up, that enabled me to increase my production of cartilage. I could make it faster. And then I had to find a way to decrease the damage being done to my joints by my own immune system. And obviously there are ways to increase DHEA naturally, but none of them seem good enough. I personally have not found a good enough way. Exercise increases DHEA, but it's just not good enough. You can't get it up high enough, But you can simply supplement it. DHEA is inexpensive. You can buy it over the counter, and you can simply supplement DHEA back up. So once I had that back up, chronic inflammation dropped down, my knees came back. It took 12 months, and to give you an idea of the condition that I was in 10 years ago, I'm 60 now. When I was 50, I had a lot of problems with my knees and hips. And the problems I was having was pain. I could walk. I couldn't run. I could, basically just get through my day-to-day activities, but just stepping off of a curb, I had to do that rather slowly. Getting out of my truck, I had to step down very slowly. Jumping off the bed of my truck onto the ground was absolutely out of the question, because that would send a lightning bolt of pain right up my spine from my hips. So I knew that there was a problem. I went to Kaiser Hospital in Riverside here, and they told me that I wore all of my cartilage out, and I would have to get a knee replacement surgery, and they were ready to schedule me. And I didn't want to do that. They sent me to a specialist. I got the same diagnosis, and that was 10 years ago. Anyway, within 12 months, I had lunged 500 pounds on these same knees. I'm currently squatting, 315, working out with that. I've squatted 365. I can do that. I can't get as many reps with that. But my knees don't bother me anymore at all. I mean, it's just been a miraculous recovery. And so I think I'm on the right track. I don't think that people need knee replacement surgeries and hip surgeries. I think that you need to attack the problem at the root of the problem, and that is your hormones have declined. You must bring those hormones back up. You have to get growth hormone back up, and you have to get DHEA back up, and then you can get your knees back. And there's also other benefits to that. For instance, when you bring growth hormone up and DHEA back up, you'll notice that you'll end up losing a lot of body fat. You'll get lean. Even if you don't really change your diet, your body just won't want the fat. Growth hormone causes lipolysis. It's a really good thing to bring up. DHEA will, bringing that up will reduce chronic inflammation, and over time, you'll lose visceral fat, which is the fat that is underneath the stomach wall, and it's in your visceral area, and it pushes your stomach out. You end up with a belly. Pot belly. Even if you don't have that much body fat, your belly will come out abnormally far. And that's just an indication that you've got a lot of chronic inflammation from a decline in DHEA. So that can go away. It's a wonderful thing. And then just to further increase the comfort of your joints, you could also supplement high hyaluronic acid and chondroitin sulfate, and maybe some glucosamine. That'll help also. But the biggest factors in bringing the cartilage back so that you actually fix the problem at the root of the problem is you bring growth hormone up and you bring DHEA up. And that's the natural method for bringing your joints back. And I can tell you from personal experience, it absolutely works. Thanks for watching.